session at 7:30, and then on workshops, we put the executive session after, and on the regular meetings, we put the executive session before.
That's wasted time. We
No,
always
no,
start our
same
meetings at
difference.
6:30. So that means you're just gonna extend the meeting an hour
We
later.
only do an executive session if we need an executive session.
So why don't you start the meeting at 6:30 then?
Right.
You want to change meetings?
She wants to start.
No,
I think she wants to start
wanna
earlier.
I don't wanna be, I don't wanna be here at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, so then you do
Like ever.
6:30.
Start 6:30.
Right.
So start the
here at 8
meeting.
o'clock at night.
Are we good, Alex, or no?
I mean, I can tell you right now, every meeting that we've ever had that's late.
Yeah, let
it
me
turns
check.
into,
Yep,
like,
we're live.
Yelling and
Okay,
people
we're
are
live.
tired.
Yeah, by 10
All
o'clock.
right.
you're good.
Anyway.
Let's,
All right.
We are on the YouTube.
Welcome to the public portion of the Chatham Township Committee meeting, workshop meeting on February 7th, 2023. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. First off this evening, I'm going to open the hearing, or I guess,
Do roll call?
do we need to do another roll call?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Troy,
Really?
Here.
Mrs. Ewald,
Here.
Mr. Lewis,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Here.
and Mayor Fleece.
Here. I didn't know that that's a thing.
Just
I think
for
that's the
record.
first time that we've done that. Anyway, all right. So we're going to go straight into our first hearing of citizens. Currently, the committee meeting room is open to the public, and we're looking forward to having you join us. Additionally, this meeting is being made available for public participation remotely. If you're watching via Zoom, you may speak during the public comment session by following the Zoom instructions to raise your hand, whether in person or online. When you are recognized to speak, please say your name, spell your last name, and give your street number. As a reminder, all public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Rather than use any of your time answering questions, we will wait until you finish speaking before responding. Each member of the public will be limited to 1 comment during the public comment period. Written comments submitted to the Township Clerk before 3 p.m. today will be read during the public comment sessions. Written comments are subject to the same guidelines as oral comments. Duplicative written comments may be summarized rather than read in full according to guidelines issued by the New Jersey State of Local Government Services. Greg, is there any written comments?
No, we don't have any written.
All right. Anybody here? Nope. Is there anybody on Zoom?
No hands are raised.
All right. Then I'm going to close the public hearing of citizens and move straight on to reports. Administration, you want to
Sure. I think.
start off? Or do you
Well,
want
I'll have one of the department heads start off. I think we did engineering first once before, so we'll move on to finance. So, Ms. King, you're up. The agenda says December, but it should be noted that these are the reports for January. She provided her January report. There are a number of things listed on there. The main one is getting the cap bank ordinance on for introduction at the end of this month. Debbie, if you want to give a brief.
Okay, each year the state will issue a cost of living adjustment for your budget appropriations. This year's cost of living adjustment is 2.5%. This is to increase your appropriations by a cap of 2.5, which they will allow you to raise it to 3.5 by ordinance, which also allows you to bank anything that you do not use, which can be used in the next 2 years. So your appropriation cap is only for the budget appropriations. It has nothing to do with your levy. That has a separate cap. And that's another whole calculation which does not have the ability to be raised. So the budget appropriation, if we have a large number of added assessments, which would increase our income for taxes, if we have a cap that is left at 2.5 and we have the ability to go to 3.5 without raising taxes, we would not be able to do that if we do not have this ordinance in place. It's a precautionary measure if it's needed. If you don't use it, it just will lapse. So it doesn't commit you to using it, just gives us the ability if we need to in the future.
So can you explain explain, so this is for appropriations, so
Mhm.
can you explain what that means?
Within the budget, you have appropriations that are within the cap and some that are outside of the cap. Like your pension contribution is inside the cap. Your health benefits, they will give a portion inside the cap, and because of this year's large increase, it's gonna be a 4% increase in our appropriation within the cap, and the rest of that percentage will go outside the cap. So there's gonna be 17.6% will be outside of the cap with our increase. That much of it will be outside of the cap. So that would not have a limitation. But inside the cap, it's gonna be 4%. So already 4% higher than 2.5 of what they're allowing as a COLA. So that one appropriation from last year can be up 4%. And that's gonna be, obviously, it's 1.5 times more than what the COLA is already. So that's using up some of the percentage from other appropriations. Our pension is going up 13.77 for PFRS, 13 for PERS. So these are large jumps, and those are all inside the cap. So we're at a 2.5% cap on our appropriations. Those are part of what are gonna eat up some of that 2.5%. So they allow us to go to 3.5%. It doesn't increase taxes necessarily, but it gives us the ability to raise appropriations even if you did not have a tax increase. Added assessments raise appropriations as well to spend those added assessment values, because you're gonna have higher, income from added assessments. If your assessments go up, your revenue goes up on tax. So, but you can't appropriate more if you don't have the room to raise that appropriation cap. Does anybody have any questions on, and not understand the premise of it?
So the committee would still have to approve regardless come budget time?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you come
Yeah.
in and you do say, I need that extra
Mhm.
taxing authority,
Right.
This
the
is just a
committee's gotta
tool.
approve.
And it has nothing to do with taxing, it's totally separate. Yeah.
This is a
This
tool that
just
gives the
for-
governing body and us as professionals, putting the budget together to have that wiggle room should we need it. And if we don't need it in one particular year, it allows you to bank that for future years, up to 2 years.
So we're looking to
So-
introduce this at the next meeting so that it would be adopt at the
You have to adopt
end
it before
of
the budget.
March
Correct.
meeting? Okay.
Right.
What's
This has
the-
to be done prior to the budget introduction.
what is the
Okay.
cap bank up to, because we weren't, the committee voted last year not to approve.
I don't have those numbers with me, I have to pull it, but we'll only have 1 year of bank, because last year we didn't approve it, so we have a 0 from last year. The year prior, we would have some money, and that would expire in.
Oh, so it's
the
2
following
years,
year.
okay, for some reason I
Yeah,
thought
you
that
have
was
2
3 years.
years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if this doesn't get approved, you have no bank, no cap bank.
Mhm.
Is there any specific questions on this cap bank ordinance that we anticipate being on the agenda at next meeting?
This, to me, I've been told that the cap bank is necessary for emergency use, because something unforeseen might come up, or we might want to increase our appropriations. And whenever I've come up against that, I think to myself, well, that's about planning, number one. And number two, it's about, it would have to, it would be access to capital, access to credit, would seem to me.
It's to increase our appropriations, it has nothing to do with an emergency.
Mhm.
It has to do with even if you want to increase your appropriations, and this will build every year. Mind
Increase
you.
your appropriations
And
over,
increase your
over
appropriations.
the 2.5%.
Over the 2.5%,
Do you know how much our appropriations were increased last year?
2.5%. But we also did not have a 26.46% increase in health benefits. So we are gonna be up against harder times this year.
Wait, so the budget last year was perfectly increased to the maximum appropriation increase of 2.5%?
Pretty much, yes.
So that 2.5% is exact?
I don't have it in front of me, Mark, but if you recall during our budget,
Okay, well, if we
Option,
don't
we were
have it
back and
calculated,
forth,
that's okay.
and I managed to get you right at your 0%. And I did that by bringing things up and down to do that.
Right.
And yes,
That
it
was
was
the
keeping
municipal
us
tax
within the
rate, though. I'm asking about
2.5.
the appropriations.
And that had to do with the appropriations.
Oh,
It was
right.
2.5, and last year we had a 0% increase on health benefits. We are at 4% this year in the cap and another 17.6 outside the cap. We have a huge increase in just healthcare alone for this year. Healthcare is close to $2 million for all the employees this year. So keep that in mind on what
This
it's
is a
gonna do to
massive
the cap.
issue throughout the whole state.
It is,
I
and that's
know,
why
I've-
the exception they are giving us is
This is
4%
a-
in the cap and 17.6 outside
Yeah.
the cap. That's how they're allowing that. We went a lot of years with a flat
Yeah.
health increase. It was multiple
Yeah,
years.
this is really a state problem that unfortunately the municipalities are really getting, the brunt of their ineptitude.
The AFS this year, when do you anticipate that to be ready? The
March.
annual financial statement? And the annual debt statement?
That's already out there.
It's out right now?
Yep, it's on the website. It should be on the website. Is it on the website?
I don't recall, but, you can check that.
Debbie, do you recall, if the cap bank, last time the cap bank was used?
I would have to go back, to see if we really ever used, it might have gone back a few years when we did use it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to look though. I don't know off the top of my
Then
head.
it would have been similar budget pressures, just surprise increases
Yeah,
that could not be
affordable
anticipated.
housing, right.
Yeah.
Mhm. Those unforeseen things, that did, increase it, yes.
It's a tool, there's no obligation to use it, it's a
Mhm.
tool that, again, as I said, it gives the governing body and the professionals in crafting the budget that flexibility should we need it. There's no harm in having it. There's, you're only hurting yourselves by not doing it. Should you run up against these pressures in the budget and you realize, hey, we need to increase these appropriations in certain areas. But at the end of the day, as Debbie said, you still have the issue of you're calculating your levy, which is, regardless of this, you're still looking at your revenues, both from assessments and, our net valuation taxable, and other revenues that come in. So, there's a trade-off. This is something that the state recognizes towns need. So, I think it's prudent to do it.
But the difference though in our town is that last year we put $1,050,000 directly into the capital budget in cash. And if you look at $1,050,000, and you can move that, right? Because this appropriations cap is on total appropriations, not on a particular category. When you're talking about $1,050,000, which in the past, that was almost 100% funded in capital, that means that about 10% of your tax revenue was put directly into capital. And previously, we had, instead of making almost 100%, and because there was a $2 million, I won't get into the weeds, but almost 100% of all capital was put in cash. That means that that money could be easily moved to anywhere else that it would be needed, and you simply reduce that down, and you go back to, in prior years, we would put down 5% into a capital plan in cash, and the rest would be issued in debt. So we already have 10% of the fiscal budget that is like an accordion that we can move around. And what this is going to do is, it sounds like a small amount, it's another 1 point, but it's a huge amount it's a large amount of money that we don't really need to put into the budget. And by not voting for this, what you do is you guarantee that we're not going to continue on the 20% tax increases that we've had previously. Now, in the past, when the cap bank was passed, that was because the committees had a 0% tax increase for many years in a row. And so, okay, if we got to some sort of normalized tax increase over many, many years, it would make some sense to say, okay, you know what, we should vote for this cap bank just to give us the appropriations and to give us some flexibility. But we had a 20% tax increase over 2 years. We have this huge amount of cash, and you can find it in the budget. You can find it in last year's budget. We had $1,050,000 to work. We don't need that much in the capital budget. We can go into debt. we can go into, the credit markets, if we need to. Or we can, do what a household does, which is put off that capital expense for another time.
So, all those things can be done, this ordinance doesn't preclude any of those.
Well, and this doesn't have anything to do with, it's not money. All it does is give you the ability to appropriate additional funds if you need to.
So that seems to be the
It's-
confusion
And
here.
you've gotta remember, you had $1 million in your capital improvement fund. You can't take that and use that and push it into inside the cap. That's an outside of the cap appropriation, and that's why you were able to do that last year. It didn't have any impact on your capital, cap, your appropriations cap. That's an outside of the cap appropriation. This only applies to the things that are inside of the cap. There's a cap
So
limit
can you
on
give us
certain
some examples
appropriations.
of what are inside the cap?
All your operating expenses,
Okay,
IT expenses,
IT expenses, okay,
that's an example.
pension,
okay.
inside the cap.
Well, like the
Outside
health
of the cap,
insurance is
Health
also
insurance,
inside the cap?
4% of it this
Right.
year. They're gonna do an exception.
And then cause that's the big
That's a
issue,
big one.
that's the massive issue in
And
every town right now. You talk to any single mayor out there, everybody is very, very concerned about the increase in health insurance.
And pension's gonna be another big one.
Right, okay.
So,
So those are all within the cap, so in order
Things
for us
that
to appropriate more funds in,
Those
for the
line
cap,
items.
on
In
those
line
items, I'm just trying to
yep.
like
Yeah,
dumb this
yeah.
down really, really, so that at least I
Right.
can fully understand. If I can understand, then I'm hoping everyone else can too. So, if we're able to appropriate more money, that does not necessarily lead to a tax increase.
Mhm.
It's just, if the health insurance costs come up, those are 100% out of our control. That is a state issue that I've been arguing for months now against. We even passed a resolution back in August saying that we are against this. So it would literally, it's just appropriating it, giving us that flexibility there, not, okay.
yes, it's just as an example, if you had a massive amount of surplus that you wanted to utilize, and
It allows us to move the money around.
just to utilize it and raise, an appropriation line, whether it was to buy 5 police cars,
Uh-huh.
you would not be able to do it because you'd be exceeding your cap limit. Because we were to do that within the operating budget, you would not be able to do it, because even if you had the surplus to cover it,
Mm-hmm.
no tax increase, if it would exceed your 2.5% COLA, you would not be able to do it.
Okay, so this is a little bit more
It's a
understand, like, I guess I didn't fully get, I didn't understand it fully last year, and that's probably my mistake. I should have spent some more time trying to understand.
Yeah, there's 2 different caps, there's a levy cap and an appropriation cap.
Okay,
The levy cap is your taxes. The
okay.
appropriation cap is basically your budget line.
I did not know
That's
that.
within a cap.
I thought a cap was a
And
cap.
Those, will go up just based on your assessed values, your equalized assessed going up based on added assessments. That
Okay.
will go up and your appropriated line will go up. Your added assessments, if they're large enough, can sustain your, increase in your appropriations. But, if we have a cap, even if you wanted to do more, you wouldn't be able to, unless you have this added, you could use your bank or the added 1% that this ordinance would allow.
The truth is, though, that municipal accounting has a lot of segregation of funds, and it's not just simply, it's in the cap, it's out of the cap. There's other segregation of funds that are all over the place. And that, the deeper you get into it, especially when you look at the utility that we run, just all the different things, money is segregated in a lot of ways. And as you said, the state has already made an exception for healthcare, right? So that can go up by 4%. I think that ultimately, the ultimate effect of the cap bank is to increase taxes. I mean, it can't be said that it's not, because it's to increase appropriations and
It's to
therefore
increase
then to
appropriations, has
increase
nothing to do
taxes.
with increasing the levy.
Like I said, I wouldn't be opposed to this if we had a long history of, 0% tax increases or very reasonable tax increases, but we don't. We have a very recent history of 20% tax increases, which even if you take those 2 years and average it with last year's 0% tax increase, you still have a runaway tax.
We had a 20%
situation.
tax increase, if it was even 20%, I'd have to go back and calculate that, which I did not do for this meeting, but we had a tax increase, we had affordable housing, and added other costs that were driving that mechanism, and we had no choice but to do that. This was something unforeseen for a multiple number of years, and Stacy, you were involved, you were there, you saw the increases that we had to be hit, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, it's all explainable. A big
Yes.
chunk of it's affordable housing.
And nothing we could have done about that. So to go back and dwell on the increase that we had to have, we have to
I'm
move
not
forward
dwelling on
and.
But it justifies what you're looking for, though. These were things
Right.
that were outside of the
Right.
Well,
department's
the
control.
problem is that when you allow increases like this that are clearly by law, we don't have to allow them, what it does is it restricts creativity. Because there was a lot done last year that was different than was done in the past. And by doing those things, we put the township in a better financial condition. And those things took creativity and work. And by just simply allowing appropriation increases, it is, necessity is the mother of invention.
Well, like, if you do not approve the ordinance, you could tie your hands as elected officials if you need to increase your appropriation. We did not do it last year. If we don't do it again this year, you'll have a zero cap bank to work on for next year and very little to work on for this year. I advise that we do it. It is no harm to do it. Your budget is what will dictate your tax increase, not this ordinance. This ordinance gives you flexibility and the ability to do what you see fit come the budget time.
I echo Debbie's remarks. I really haven't seen many towns ever fail this. I think it's a pretty bad move to fail this and not adopt this ordinance and have that in your toolbox. Whatever happened last year I think is debatable as to the financial soundness of those. Plus, there were some one-shot gimmicks. Moving one thing in from one fund into another fund, you can't do that every year. Once it's been moved, that trick is done. So I think to rely that creativity can solve the problem of healthcare costs that have gone up by double-digit percentages, pension costs that are going up. We just had a discussion in executive session about other expenses that are unanticipated. These are all things that, at the end of the day, are policy decisions that the Finance Committee and then the full Township Committee will have an opportunity to weigh in on, again, by way of adoption of the budget. So you're not eliminating, you're not dictating or necessitating that there be an increase, especially not in taxes. Debbie has reiterated it at least five times in this conversation, despite attempt to confuse that with the levy cap. This is the appropriation cap, not the levy cap. Appropriation cap does not translate to a tax increase.
Is there a time constraint on getting this done?
Has to be done. Has to be adopted before the adoption of the budget.
So it would have to be introduced at the next meeting, at the end of February, and then adopted at the end of March meeting.
But even if we know what this year's snapshot looks like, it impacts next year.
Mm-hmm. 2
And
years.
I feel like this year, we're in much better shape based on what I've seen and what $1 million in capital that you talked about, those things. And I still have yet to find out exactly, but I feel like we're in better shape this year and we're not gonna have those same.
And when we do the budget introduction, we can show you if we are staying within 2.5 or if we've had to go into the bank to utilize to increase the appropriations.
And that would have to come before the committee, right?
Oh, yes,
So outside of
absolutely.
the two and a half.
Everything.
All right, so we don't really have to
The way I
make a
look at it.
formal decision here whether we're adopting this tonight. We can make the decision that we can add it to the next meeting for the introduction.
Can I speak on this?
Yes.
Just real quick, you mentioned there's a significance, like year over year, to that, like certain aspects of this are affected over the course of multiple years, like it fades or something, because I know, like last year, we didn't adopt this, and if we chose not to adopt it again this year, would there be some special significance to that, the fact that it was not adopted 2 years in a row?
Yes.
It would have a domino effect, essentially, because the one last year, had it been adopted, it gives you that bank for 2 years, what you're not using. So for this year, we're able to count on the previous, 23, so the 2021 cap bank. But that, for next year, having 2 in a row, you don't have that opportunity in 2024.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Yep, okay.
Okay, do we have, are there at least 3 people here that are okay with adding it to the next agenda, to introduce?
I think that we should wait until the annual financial statement's ready.
It'll be too late for the budget. If we want a budget,
Yeah.
timely manner, a budget needs to
I'm
be
okay with
introduced in
adding it
March.
to the next agenda.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I mean, the way I look at it is, it's a zero cost option to have the tool available for
Mhm.
this year, next
Exactly.
year's budget. I do share, a concern I have is, it's a bit of cart before the horse, we're making it we're availing ourselves of a tool we don't know if we need because we don't have the budget. And that in and of itself is slightly problematic, and I understand where Mark's coming from in the sense that, I think we have to be very judicious in the event that, if the ratables increase, so this only works if there's cash, if the additional cash, from revenues that were not otherwise foreseen, correct?
If
In
you
the way
do
it's
not have a
taxed,
tax
taxes
increase,
also.
We'll
correct?
just raise it.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think the use of it must be very judicious, right? So it's not something that.
And you have the
I
control
would-
over that.
right.
You will have the control over that when it comes time for the budget.
So it's a tool of last resort, it costs us nothing to make it avail ourselves to it. It's an
And you
option
can still
value at
reject
zero
it.
cost.
Right,
Yeah.
and it could sit there and once you don't use it, and it would just lapse.
And keep in mind, like this, we wouldn't be deciding on actually adopting this until the end of March, so that's like 6 weeks away. So we're just talking about adding it onto the agenda in 2 weeks to introduce. So, the ordinances you have to introduce, then the following one, you have the public comment section, and then you adopt it.
Can I ask a question of the committee? If we have an increase of 3.5 and budget time, Z and I put a budget together that increases the appropriations 3.5 with a 0% tax increase, would there be any objection to that?
I would, because what would end up happening there is that you would be depleting areas of the budget that that wouldn't be the best use of funds because of the way that finances are segregated, in my opinion.
Well, how do you know that it's the best use of funds?
Because if you look at what's inside the cap, what's outside the cap, and how the other ways that municipal monies are segregated, you would see that there's only a finite amount of tax revenue, and
It's 12 million and change that are in the inside of the cap. That's what we're basing this on.
Either
12
way-
million out of, what is our budget?
18.
18 million.
Yeah, we
That's
still
how
have
much of it is inside the cap.
we still have the opportunity to make those decisions when we get the budget.
That's
So when we get
right.
the budget,
Right.
if she says, I need 3.5%,
Right.
and at that point, we're saying, well,
What's the tax
what
increase?
is,
And I say
what is
0.
causing that?
Right.
And then we can decide what do we wanna cut to keep it
Right.
below the 3.5%. So we still have the, and
Right.
Right.
for this year, while everybody's still here, we still have that ability to make that decision.
And again, you talk about long-term planning, that this is also part of that long-term planning, because for 2024, you don't know, we still don't know what's gonna happen. Nobody predicted that healthcare costs were gonna
Right.
happen, what's happening. We don't know what happens with, we can shop that stuff around now, but you just don't know 1 year, 2 years, a pandemic, nobody predicted that, and that affected things drastically in a lot of places. So having this and adopting this is just, as they say, a tool in your toolbox, but also part of that long-term planning for not just this year, but 2 years ahead.
And if you don't wanna tie your hands, with the public, if you have to make a decision that something in operating has to go up, and you can't do that because you haven't adopted this ordinance.
Now, I would suggest, if you're in a situation where you're gonna come to the committee and say, I want 3.5% increase in my appropriations, that there's, some suggestions as to what can be cut to get it under 2.5%. Now, I don't know if that's 5 police cars, I don't know if that's staff, I don't know if that, so, some IT stuff that we wanna do, so I would suggest that there's, recommendations for what could be cut in order to get us back under that 2.5% appropriation.
All right, can we move on? Is there any other questions on Debbie's report?
I did have a question. So I was amazed to see the UCC fees are at 109,000, which if we had that run rate through the rest of the year.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The UCC fees, and I'm not sure if you're able to answer this, but do we have a sense of, because I would have thought at this point, the way the market's flowing, that would have come down, with the interest rate increases, people, you would think weren't doing the projects that they were doing beforehand. So I was just trying to get a sense, because I know there was some cleanup of some of the processing. Is this just because processing has been cleaned up for this, or is this
don't
real?
know, that would really be a department.
Yeah, I could find
Okay.
out for you, but I think it also has a little bit to do with Enclave.
Mm-hmm.
And the housing across the street on Hillside, because when those things come online, the initial fees to start those homes is high. I mean,
Okay, because I thought most of Enclave came in already. But on those 4, 5, I wouldn't have expected, well, 4 actually.
Yeah.
Expected much from those 4 houses. Okay, yeah.
But I'll
we'll
find
get
out
some
for
more.
you.
I'm just trying to get a sense of,
When
is
is it
this
gonna
gonna
slow down?
continue? That would be
When is it
a
gonna
good
slow down?
problem to have.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Was there anything else, Debbie, in your report?
Mm-hmm.
No, okay.
I've been working on temporary budget, if anybody has any questions on the reports that are all good? Okay.
Thank you. Do you want to go into
Next to, who's next after, well,
Or do you
Larry
want-
would be next
Larry?
on here.
Going in reverse order, is that it?
Pardon?
Basically, people who are here first.
Yeah, I'm just doing like, so I just rotate who starts based off of who's here from the
Okay.
last time.
I didn't see a report
From Larry, no, there was not a report.
I want to make
and
sure I wasn't missing anything.
No, so there was not an explicit report from Larry. Larry has been doing a tremendous job, working quite a number of hours in the finance office, helping out there until our tax collector starts this week. So he's anxiously waiting her arrival. But he's been very helpful over there, so that's taken him a little bit away from the sort of general recreation stuff, although pool is still heavily on his mind, which is why we've got these 2 items here, which is for discussion. The first one being the colony pool fees. You want to tee that up, or you want me to?
I mean, I guess just in general, we need to set the fees for the summer. And there's been some discussion of we need to increase them at some point, so whether it's a large increase or just take baby steps along the way, just based on operating expenses alone and other capital type stuff that we need to, that we'd like to be able to do over there. So I think as much as anything was just to have a general discussion about how we go
Right.
about that.
I was thinking so the pool did not, obviously it's not a utility anymore. It used to be a utility, but it's not self-liquidating. It was not self-liquidating this year. It's the revenues did not come close to meeting the expenses, but not by a huge amount, but still a significant amount. I think just with everything else, cost of living, things going up in price, that we should be adjusting those rates. A 2%, 3% increase. You have an ordinance that was adopted, I believe it was last year, which set the ranges, and then a resolution would be needed to set the rates for this year within that range. And we need to get some clarity from you, the governing body, on whether you find a 2 to 3% increase acceptable for that, so that way we can start to input those fees into the registration system and the marketing and get the word out for registration, which is going to be happening very soon.
How much is the fee now, and does a 2 to 3% bump plug the shortfall?
It's not going to plug the shortfall, no. I don't think, short of, I think I estimate somewhere around I want to say maybe 12 or so percent, like a jump, which is not what we want to do in 1 year. But I think every year, just like, most fees or, costs go up, you want to just adjust them every year, so it's not 1 year making a big leap. And that's why I'm suggesting a 2 to 3% increase.
A few years back, there was an effort at a kind of that big jump to try and fund some things, and they had a big drop off in, people would join the pool. So
Yeah, we don't
2
wanna-
to 3% seems reasonable.
Yeah, we don't want to discourage people. We certainly, again, don't want to make it a big jump, but, gyms, clubs, everything, goes up. Electricity, just because the expenses are going up, costs going up. The pool's not immune to the increases, that we're dealing with in every aspect.
Yeah.
So that's why I think just a 2 to 3% adjustment would help us getting to a point where the shortfall isn't as big.
Now, do you have, like, do you know how many, residents attended the pool last year?
Not off the top, I
Okay.
would say, yeah, not off the top of my head.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
When you say how many attended, are you talking about like daily attendance, or are you talking about total for the season?
Total for the season.
Sum of check-ins, so just so I know what.
Of Chatham
I mean like check-in,
Township.
like total check-ins for the
entered the
season?
No,
facility.
Or are you
just
saying like on
people.
average in a day?
Memberships,
Memberships?
yes.
That, you know about how many memberships?
Yeah.
Of just of Chatham Township
Yeah, okay.
residents.
Yeah, that's why I don't.
He's thinking,
Oh,
he's
no problem.
thinking
I was
tax
just-
collector.
I can email you
Got
guys
it.
with the
Yeah,
exact
that would
breakdown.
be
I'll do that. Yeah, yep,
Thank you.
no problem.
So the family membership is what, $550, I think?
It was
$550?
$575, I thought last year.
Yeah, so we're talking about like
Yeah,
$15
so
bucks.
it's,
not
Right.
that's what I mean, it's not,
$15, $20,
yeah.
yeah.
It's, the fees are very reasonable, I think, especially for seniors and,
Mhm.
you know, families, resident families, so.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? So the question is, do you want to increase the fees, or do you want to increase the revenue? You can increase the fees, but that's not really gonna benefit the township or the pool. What's gonna benefit the township and the pool is to increase the revenue at the pool. And we've proven in the past, increasing the fees does not increase the revenue at the pool. What increases revenue at the pool is strategically looking at categories and then seeing in it with a comparative analysis to other clubs around us where we can increase the fees. And then attracting the most number of people. We also know that the pool works at 2,000 memberships. We know that it works at 1,800 memberships. We know that it does not work at 1,100 or 1,000 memberships. And it doesn't work on a lot of levels, from retaining a concession vendor to running any programs that are productive. So those are the
So we wanna get as
Things-
many people, members as possible.
of course, you always want to get the
Yes.
most number of members, but
How
you also
many
need to
memberships
have
do we have?
programming.
He doesn't know, he's getting
Yes,
it done.
I'll email it around.
Mark, did you have any membership numbers?
Well, I've been cut off from the registration system, so we always had that, and the pool committee had registration system access. But as I've reported to this committee previously, the pool committee's been cut off, and I personally have been cut off from it, so I can't check on any of that reporting and stuff that we've done
Well,
over the past.
that's why we have Larry to handle that, cause we know you're too busy to handle everything as well.
Isn't
Um,
Colony coming off a banner year in terms of a significant increase in memberships? Because
I mean, it was very popular last summer. I mean, you could tell us how popular, it seemed very, you guys had events all the
Colony
time.
was possibly closing, so it.
Yeah, I don't
was a
have much
beneficiary.
history, I can't
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
compare history, that's my issue, right? I just know, yeah, last summer we had a very successful season, I guess is the best way to put it, but I don't know where we
Well,
are
then,
numbers.
could you get us, like what your proposed increase in rates would be? And we can kinda go from there? Is that out of
Yeah, I
question?
mean, yeah, we could calculate, like I said,
I mean,
we're thinking 2 to 3%.
2 to 3% to me
Like I said,
doesn't seem
it's
like
a
marginal.
nominal amount.
I don't see that really affecting anything. I think that's pretty much gonna be the exact same number of people are gonna join if it's 2% more. So I don't really see that changing anything, but I do think we need to, do everything we possibly can, obviously, to increase membership.
Agreed.
And I think one of the biggest things last year was just the events that you guys had. I know I got a ton of positive feedback from the live music, and the various different parties and stuff that
Yeah, we'll
you guys
definitely do all
that.
those again, for
So,
sure, yep.
We did
that's
have success also with the early bird fees.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
you'll have
that's
to think
March,
about.
that starts in March already, so that's why it's a
Yes,
timely.
so you'd have to think about whether or not that
discussion.
2 to 3% increase comes after. So in other words,
Right,
do early bird lock in last year and then increase the 2 to
Right.
3%.
You obviously need that at next meeting.
Oh, yeah.
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 The other thing you're gonna find when you look into the numbers is that you'll find that we had more people certainly at a certain point in June, and we had lower revenue. And that was at higher rates. So we had higher rates, more members, lower revenue. And that was because certain categories were not being charged correctly, and some things that were worked out in the system, with GIS data being added, so the addresses are being, so if you're out of town, you get charged the right fee. But the thing is, we had almost no babysitter revenue last year, and that's because you could add a babysitter as your 6th family member. And because of there being different last names in a household, it's very hard to pull that out by going through the data. So we need to fix that. You bring in $8,000 in, simply in babysitter revenue. We had, in some circumstances, when I did have access to data, 12, 14 people in one household. They're all members, and they're under one family membership.
Yeah.
So
So that sounds like the programming issues that maybe we can really work on cleaning up.
yeah, but
Yeah,
looking
and
at
we
this
acknowledge
with
that they needed to be
with a-
cleaned
with
up.
a
Last year it was
wide brush of saying
implemented
2 to
very
3%
late
is
in the
not
game,
going to
so.
work, and it doesn't work historically for the pool, and it is what drove membership down over a long period of time.
2%?
No, it was a giant increase.
Yeah, it was a giant increase, but a 2% increase, I don't see anybody changing their mind off of 2%.
No, but okay, what happened last year was there was a small increase, and then there was another transactional fee that was added afterwards, right? So the small increase became much larger. So you're saying it's going to be 2 to 3%, but
What was the transactional fee?
it was basically like a credit card processing. It was a surprise. Right?
On the, when they signed up for it?
52%.
I didn't hear complaints from
I didn't
people
hear
about the
about that.
price at all. If anything, you
I
know,
mean,
people
it's
just resumed their lives and were traveling and doing things they hadn't done
Yeah.
previously, getting out,
Right.
you know, staying at the shore
Well,
houses now. And all
So you guys recommend a 2 to 3% increase, is that the recommendation, Larry
Yes.
and Z?
Yes.
Both of you guys recommend that? Alright, so, and this has to be done by a resolution or ordinance?
Resolution.
Resolution. Alright, so, I mean, I'm fine with adding a resolution on the next agenda with a 2 to 3% increase with,
This
as
would-
long as, you know, you guys provide us with the rates and
Yeah,
stuff.
well, we absolutely will.
Is there anyone else okay with adding it onto the agenda? I gotta count heads here.
That's fine by me.
I need one more person. You're good? Alright, that's 3.
And those rates would still be within the range that had been set by ordinance.
Okay. Alright, what's the next?
Next one is also related to the pool,
Okay,
is the Colony concession stand.
okay.
So, we had Vespucci's, it was bid out, for some reason, it was bid out for a 3-year contract, but only awarded for a 2-year contract. And so I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Which is very bizarre, I don't know why
Alright.
that happened, but, that's kind of the confusion that we had trying to figure out what was going on there. So we need a concession operator,
Right.
for this year, so we want to, authorize the bid as
Right.
it was done 2 years ago, March of 2021 was when it was bid out. So we
Mhm.
need to rebid it, and I'm proposing we just rebid it the same exact way it was bid before, but that we try and get a broader dissemination through maybe chambers of commerce in the area, business groups, things like that, so people know that the success of these is the knowledge by
Right.
the restaurant community that we are seeking a vendor. Vespucci's was great, we would certainly encourage them to apply again,
Right.
but we also wanna
Well,
maximize.
historically, we've had a really hard time filling that spot, so,
Most towns do, I can tell you,
Yeah.
most municipal pools have that problem.
yeah.
That's why a lot of municipal pools are going private or outsourcing to the YMCA, like
Right.
Westfield, which, is one of the best, went that route.
Right.
That's what's happening, so, we have to do this if we want a pool operator, I think we want a pool operator,
Yeah.
concession stand,
People
that's,
definitely want
people
that.
need that at the pool, so we wanna authorize that bid, at the next meeting, so that way we can, if you wanna draft something, if you want us to do something differently in terms of writing it up, we can certainly do that. But I think following the last one, just keeping them simple is usually the best for concession
Yes.
stand operators. It's when you start getting very complicated, cause they don't
Yeah,
wanna fill
I-
this paper out.
Yeah,
Like,
No, I think it
and
needs
you-
to be the
and you-
most simple,
Yeah.
basic, bare bone type of
Yeah, cause
bid.
these restaurant operators are not in the business of doing government
No,
things, and so
they're almost
you
doing
wanna
us a
keep it
favor, cause we
correct.
want to be able to sell food there, so, but
If
I'm
you're
fine
too
with that.
specific that you cut them out, you
Right,
dwindle
exactly. So we wanna just be sort of very general about it, I think.
Right.
And see what comes in, so that way you have the flexibility to pick from. I think Vespucci was the only one that submitted last time, right?
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
so.
And I've gotten 0 complaints about Vespucci.
Yeah,
so
I've
if it
only heard
works
really
out
good
that
things
way,
about
yeah.
them.
Yeah, so
So-
it would be great if they come back.
Yeah.
But they would have to bid it, and, I think this time we wanna go with a 3-year contract,
Yeah.
right? Bid 3 years and award 3 years?
Everybody
You
good?
don't wanna be doing this every year,
Yeah, really.
or every
Yeah.
2 years.
Everybody good?
When you're saying keep it as simple as possible, you're referring to the last bid being simple?
The last pool bid was fairly simple. The pool concession bid was fairly simple.
Okay. I remember looking at it, it was like 47 pages, and it had in there like, have you done any business with iGran?
Well,
But
those are required.
That's a requirement.
I understand, but I guess that's simple.
I guess simple
That's what I
within the
said.
context of what we're allowed to do,
What's the most
right?
simple,
Yeah.
When I
like,
say-
legal way
right,
here?
So when I say simple, let me rephrase that,
Yeah.
right?
As simple as the state of New Jersey will allow us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are procurement laws on what we're supposed to do with all of these things, disclosures that are mandated. When I'm saying simple, I'm talking about, the part that's tailored, which is what they respond with, right? So I've seen concession agreements where it's like, list you have to serve hot dogs, hamburgers, this, that, the other thing, and we need this
No.
price, and how much of it is coming back to
No,
the
no,
town.
no,
Like,
they
so,
can have whatever they want, we just want them to
what we
show
say
up.
is, give us a
Yeah,
menu.
literally just
It's
show
like,
up.
give us a menu with prices and what you're willing to pay, and
Yeah.
that's really, I think, as simple as it can get, right? And
Yeah,
you have to
unless
include all
there's
the-
like popcorn, unless there's a specialty thing that,
And they
people
can,
are
they can
used to.
change up in the day, can't they?
Yeah, you
Like,
can
we
give
do-
them that.
do we
you can
care?
No,
Give
but
them that
some-
flexibility to
sometimes
do whatever they
They
want.
have to,
Correct.
they have to have at least maybe three things, three
No,
things,
no,
three
no.
drinks.
They, let them do whatever they want, as long as they're there, we're good.
Yeah, because I mean,
You
the
know,
more
like,
successful
they're
they
doing it,
are.
they're helping us,
Yeah,
yeah.
but like, they're
They
not
know
gonna
the
wanna go
business.
there and run a crappy business because
Right.
that hurts them, so.
Right. They know how to do this better than us, there's no need for us to micromanage.
So,
Just get a bunch of food trucks there.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna ask, do you have any, recommended capital improvements for Colony?
Yeah.
In terms of generating, aside from, entertainment and other things that
We do, I mean, myself, Z, and Rich Young took a walk around there recently, so we haven't really put pen to paper, but there's definitely some stuff that could be done, for
yeah,
sure.
we have a list of some
Safety
things that,
issues.
yeah, the playgrounds are a big thing. We're looking at the concrete, edging, we're looking at, diving boards, we're looking at, the chairs, new chairs. What were some of the other things?
Sand toys.
Sand toys. I mean, so he's got a list of a bunch of things that he's gonna be pricing out, getting us ranges, and then we'll be working within a budget. We'll present to you to see, what are the priorities, because obviously you don't wanna spend all that money all at once. But, we also wanna prioritize some things, based on safety and necessity. So, we did the walkthrough, we identified some things that we wanna touch on. We're doing more, landscaping
Landscape.
and fence work this season. The landscaper, I think Rich told me, was out there today, or will be out there this week, putting together a landscape plan. We're doing some cleaning up along the fence line as well. So a lot of things happening we're trying to do small stuff every year, so that way the pool's always looking like it's being invested in.
fantastic. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Gonna move straight on to engineering.
I have
Yeah.
Oh,
just
good.
two items for recreation. One is a New Jersey American Water grant that's available in a partnership. If two entities come into a partnership, there's a $10,000 grant. And I've spoken to Open Space Committee Chairman, and he'd be in favor of this. This has to do with some passive recreation space at Arbor Green, ripping up the concrete that's there and planting in some, and this is how it comes into New Jersey American Water grant, which is allowing, putting in some watershed-friendly plants and allowing, I guess, what's the engineering term here, John? What am I looking for?
Retention.
Recharge? Recharge, yeah, recharge, there it is. Allowing some recharge on that property, and we could get grant money to.
Is this
to
Colony
fund
Pool?
Arbor Green,
No, for Arbor
skate
Green.
park.
The skate
If you
park.
could email me that grant info, I'll work with John, Larry, and Rich, and see what we can come up
the
with.
macadam that's still there, the blacktop.
And then the other one is, for the opioid settlement money. We've been talking a little bit to the library, and, to do a opioid awareness program through the library. They've been having trouble, they would like to attract teens, and one way of doing that is, through video games. And they proposed to me an idea that if, we could use some of our opioid settlement to purchase a video game library. They will attach information about opioids to each game case, and have a digital component and a physical component for informing teens about opioids, and be like an opioid awareness campaign. And then at the same time, we could do that. We could do something with recreation and live events that's been done in other communities with that settlement money, where we could have a shootout at the library.
I had spoken to environmental committee chair about an event of some sort as well in regards to opioids and all, it was like mental health and.
I think that was part for Girl Scouts.
Oh, maybe it was that.
Cause I'm sure he's going, why would the environmental?
Yeah, all right, I'm
But it's
sure
for
it's
the
the same
Girl
person.
Scouts. Yeah, they're doing
Right,
a service day, which is a mental health.
right, and they were.
broad mental health.
They were gonna do something with that as well, which I thought it's all a good idea. I mean, it's all, obviously, all for educating as much of the youth as possible.
Wait, so Mark, what was the action item on it?
So the action item would be, it's opioid settlement money, so it's money that we have on the books, and so I guess we would have a resolution to, give the library some portion of the funds that we have in order to acquire the game library that they don't have now, and then they were going to do the rest of the work, where they would, attach this information and, they would advertise the, press release or whatever about the availability of that. And it kind of goes nicely with, and maybe Mr. Hamilton would know better than I would, I do believe that their teen center or something new, that's the first initiative, I think, for at the library.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. It's still a ways off, but that is the plan.
It's a ways off, yeah, but anyway,
Yeah, from just us.
so I was wondering if there was.
Yeah, so, timely that you spoke, because Debbie and I, just as we were working on budget stuff, just last week, we were looking at the settlement agreement on approved uses, so we were gonna, I've got that agreement, we were gonna prepare some options for you
What's the
guys.
amount?
based-
15?
It was just a little over 11 that we
Okay,
got.
11.
Yeah, in the ballpark, so.
It's not earmarked for anything specific.
maybe-
No, but there's a settlement agreement from the, from the manufacturers, the distributors of
Right.
opioids with the federal government, and then there was a settlement agreement between the federal government and the state governments, and that that settlement agreement with the state, is what dictates in there. There's a number of pages on approved
Like,
uses.
right.
And so, I was just pulling that document up last week with Debbie, but, it talks about prevention, education, public awareness, all those different things. One of the things that we were thinking was, tying in the municipal alliance, because that's their main focus, and so, we just haven't had yet a chance to make a pitch to you guys on, ideas and go through the settlement agreement with the attorney and just make sure that
When we first got it, it was
it's
about that
thick, yeah, and there's a lot of documents, but, if you wanna move on that sooner rather than later, we can certainly do that,
Do you have any objections to that, Mr. Shawnee, the library idea?
I don't, I just wanted, I didn't go through, I think it was I just pulled it
So
up
is
right
there,
here,
like-
there's letter A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, topics of approved uses, so I just wanna make sure, but I
Education is
think
one.
it falls within there. But sometimes they require sort of evidence-based things, so we just, I don't have any objections to it. It's really how you guys, that's
Right.
your policy, how you wanna distribute the funds. I just know
Well,
that there's competing
let's-
interests between the
Let's
municipal
all,
alliance and.
look into that, and especially since there is
Yeah.
competing interest.
And
in
maybe
it.
you do it sort of like a grant program where you
Right.
tell, different
Like,
entities if you
give
want.
us some ideas on what, and
Yeah.
then we choose the best
Let
idea.
them come to you with their ideas,
Mhm.
and a budget for it. And then maybe you could decide, hey, we wanna give 2,000, or we wanna
Mhm.
just do all 11,000 to one entity, so, Debbie and I were just still in the research phase.
Right.
It's only 11,000, but it's a good
It's
amount of money
significant.
for a small community group here. So if you wanna bump that up in the list of things, we can certainly, maybe even just subcommittee, of you guys, I don't know if you wanna do it
But
that
I mean,
way, and then
beautiful, the
Peter and
library
I.
can take it off. I mean, they have the resources to,
What is that, I'm sorry?
to take it off your plate. Like, they have the resources to, you know what I mean, to
Yeah.
execute it.
Yeah, I don't, this is not something that I necessarily, need to have on my plate.
You don't
so.
wake up at night thinking about it?
Nope.
All right. Thank you very much, Larry.
No problem. No
We are
problem.
going straight into engineering. John.
And Larry's gonna hang around just because we do have a topic
Oh.
that kind of crosses over.
Okay, yeah, so
Larry,
sorry,
you're
you
hanging
can't
around-
leave yet.
You're hanging around for a second, yeah.
I'll stay.
Just
Can't
because
leave
I
yet,
want
okay.
John to touch on, the one thing that Larry, touches on also, which is the, Colony Pool tennis courts.
Okay, so we got no ordinances or
Before we-
legislation. Okay, so we're going straight into the Colony Pool tennis courts.
Okay. Anything else on my report or questions or anything that?
Well, we can get to the, just so that
Okay,
way,
like
Larry
Yep,
can
Yeah.
go.
understood.
We'll do the tennis
Um,
courts and then get to the other stuff.
So our thought is that we did bid it last year, and the bids came in higher than we hoped. And so we're looking at, you know, going out the bid immediately, you know, in early spring, so that we get on the contractor's schedule, and we get, you know, going, you know, late spring, summer, early summer, get the work done. I believe we have $90,000
I
that's
think that was
available.
what was
Yeah,
earmarked last.
earmarked for it, and unfortunately, the bids that we received, it was about $46,000, just over, for the 2 courts. So we would need just over 90 to do 2 courts. I think we could, you know, hopefully we can get some competitive bids, and we can do with the 90, we can do 2 courts, but certainly we want to focus at the very least at the furthest court, and get at least 1 court done with the available funds. We could structure the bid with a supplemental bid, so that we have a base bid, they do that work, and a supplemental if they can do additional work, and just try to get more work done. But at least get a contract that we can move forward with. And the thought is that there has been some interest in pickleball, and
Yeah.
so the thought is to you know, double stripe the court, so that it can be used for tennis and then also pickleball supplemental. And so I think that we're going to have to just utilize the one net, or we would have.
Well, in a perfect, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can do it,
Yeah.
but each tennis court can accommodate 2 pickleball courts.
Right.
So in a perfect world, there's 6 courts in total, 6 tennis courts right now. There's 4 in one housing, and then there's 2 at the end. Perfect world would be if we could do the 2 at the end, which would be 4 pickleball courts, and again, I don't know if it's gonna fall underneath the
Yeah.
90,000 necessarily, but that would be the ideal first step, we thought, based
Yeah.
on where we were.
Okay,
And then when
so-
you convert it to pickleball, it's a portable net, right?
It's a portable net, yeah, exactly right.
Some
Yeah.
storage issue.
Yeah, you have like a metal container probably with a combination lock, you know, everything through, you know, the logistics of it, but. And then based on that, you can see what the usage was, and, you know, some towns have, you know, purely
Right.
dedicated pickleball courts, but until we realize what
Right.
kind of usage you have on them.
So you're asking from us,
Permission to bid.
okay, I'm fine with it.
Permission to bid for, like we said, those 2 tennis courts, up to those 2 tennis courts with the double striping option, tennis and, pickleball.
Big ball.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna have enough funds to do a double set of court,
Right.
but, you know, at least we wanna focus on that first set of courts and get
Right.
that done.
When you say do the courts, are you talking about ripping them up and?
No, we're just gonna do crack repair, and then resurfacing, the resurfacing coating, redoing the coating, not going
That's
in,
crazy.
milling it out.
Yeah, the holes,
They're
how
just
much was the
cracks, they're
bid
filling
for
cracks.
all of them?
For all of them,
Do you remember
it's,
about how much it was?
it was 140,000 to do all
Well, we
6.
have that money, why don't we just do them all?
Well, that's up to discussion of the committee, if we wanna put additional funds
Yeah.
to.
We have that money, I
What-
mean,
Was
what
it
condition?
46,000 for
46 per
court.
court,
per court,
And we have 6 courts.
so we have 90
and it's
earmarked.
140,000 for all of them though?
yes, that's,
That's a deep
Yeah.
discount.
It was,
No,
yeah.
wait,
Yeah,
how does
no,
that
it-
work?
It was, yeah, it was over 45 per court. It
So-
was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was over 45, but that's
I
usually
mean,
what I've been
if it's
seeing.
45 times 6, you're looking
No,
at,
45 times 2. It's 45
Right,
for the
right.
set
For
of
the
courts, it's 6. So it'll be 3 times 50,
Oh,
closer
okay.
to 50. It's
So
45 to
150.
50, so I think it came out to 139 or something like that. I can pull it up, but
Oh, okay.
it was about 140,000 for the.
Oh, wait.
It was
for the-
only-
for the whole 6 courts.
for all 6.
For all 6, and when I say 45, it was 45 for each set is what you typically.
Oh.
Got
That's
it, I
what we
mixed
see. That's what I
that.
see with other towns and what
I
I've
thought
been
it
in other
was
towns. So.
90 for the two.
That's what you
No,
described.
I'm
Right.
sorry, it was, when I said
I
two,
remember
it's two
92
sets.
too.
So
Got
so
it.
it's, you know, we're looking at, if we're gonna doing
So it's
the
if it's only
tennis-
one more set, essentially.
Yeah, I'm thinking with the 90,000, I don't think we can get, let me say, 4 courts. I don't think we can get the 4 courts. It's gonna be extremely tight.
Right.
No guarantee that we can get the 4 courts, just doing the courts,
Right.
not doing pickleball. But
Right.
if we're gonna be doing the
Pickleball
tennis
too.
and the pickleball, it's gonna creep up the cost with the striping, is gonna
Right.
creep up a little bit. You know, the crack
So you're
repair is the
looking at like
same, the
50?
ceiling is generally the same, it doesn't matter, you know, the colors are generally the same, but it's gonna still increment. So it's gonna be really hard to get 4 courts done with the 90,000.
Right.
So, you know, we're gonna at least get the 2 courts with the pickleball done, that will be done, and we'll have money left over, and that money left over could be utilized to complete the remaining 4 courts.
I mean, but if you, to the committeeman's point, if you went for the full 6, could you get a better, you think you could get a better deal? I mean, you have got the contractor there.
Certainly you get economy of scale, and you could probably get a better price, it's maybe a few $1,000s savings, but, you know, we are talking about 90, so it's a discussion with the committee, is do you wanna put more money, you know, to do a larger project? You know, we were thinking that we had the 90, let's go and get the project
Right.
done, get on the schedule, and do that. But if the committee wants to put more funds, I would suggest doing more funds quickly, because, you know, we don't wanna bid this out in the
Right,
summer,
right.
and then, you know, everyone's
Yeah.
booked up already, you know, that's.
Right,
that's-
right.
What's the
I
life
think
of
it's-
the repairs, or the
How much
proposal,
time does
what's
it
the
buy?
life of the courts once we do the work?
Well, you get at least another 5 more years out of it,
Okay.
you know, and you look at the existing courts, I think we got well over 15, you know. But
Yeah.
when you look at it, that's what they'll guarantee for it, but you'll probably get 5 years. It depends how much you want you know, right now, you know, these courts are a lot better looking than some of the courts in some other towns that
Right.
I've seen, so they're not, you
So
know.
Yeah,
now-
there's no safety issues there. They
Yeah.
are in good shape, right? It's not that they're in terrible shape. This is, I'd call it preventative maintenance and life extension on them. You know, I think there needs to be a larger discussion that as we finish through the operating budget and start getting to capital, but we'll be reviewing our open space fund, we'll be reviewing our recreation trust fund, all these things, coming up with an order of priority
That's
for
kind
different
of-
things. So
was my
because we have this sort of 90,000 that was earmarked from last time, you know, that's why I'm comfortable in saying like, yes, let's go ahead and do this, but trying to come up with more, expand the scope of the project, I don't feel comfortable, you know, with our professionals doing that just yet until we've really looked at all of our facilities and determined, you know, what is our spending plan for the next 5 years there. There are, you know, I've met with Larry and I have met with the rec teams, there's work that needs to be done at all these fields. So I think until we can come up with, you know, priorities list and develop a good budget, 5-year budget based off of all these things, I think let's just stick to this right now.
So 92,000, John buys us the refurbishment of 2 tennis courts, 2 courts lined for 2 tennis courts or 4 pickleball courts.
No, 4 courts.
We
Four
have
tennis courts.
$90,000, we do not have 92, so we.
Well, I
have-
understand, so like
yeah, yeah.
92 buys it, because you're saying
Well, I'm just saying, that
46
was
per
the
court.
quote that we had last year.
Okay.
Is there, can I guarantee we're gonna get 46
No.
again? No,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, it may be up slightly more for us, so that's the ballpark that we're in. So if we
So 90
wanted.
plus 4 courts or 2 courts?
Well, look, I would say this, if you, I mean, the number, and I gotta revisit this with Debbie, but the number 90, there's no like firm set number. I think it was just more of what, you know, was anticipated for this. So if it gets to 95, and that's the difference between doing 2 and 4, then we'll come back, and when you decide to award the contract, you can award the contract or not. You know, there is that money there. What I'm saying is going from 90 to 180 or whatever it is, right now, I would hold back on that. But if the goal is to get those 2 end courts completely done.
So it's 2
and-
courts.
2
2
tennis.
tennis
courts,
courts,
correct.
convertible of 4 pickleball.
Correct.
Okay, now
But
I
that's
understand.
45,000.
Excuse me?
You keep saying 4 courts, that's what I'm getting.
Because,
Yeah.
because it's 90,000 was appropriated, but 45,000 is the cost for 2 courts. Now, if 90,000 is the max budget, John doesn't feel comfortable going past the 45, because when the thing scales up and maybe it's 55, if it's times 2, it's gonna be 110, he's gonna be way over. So he wants to do the two tennis courts for 45,000. Now, the issue with that is that the Chatham High School varsity tennis team plays there, so you're gonna have 2 reconditioned courts and then 4 that are not. So it's gonna be wonky for the.
Yeah, there's gonna be a really cry out to get the rest of the ones done, I'm sure, once these are done, they're gonna be,
Yeah,
So can we hold off, and until you guys have some,
It's
meet
gonna be
with your.
months. I mean, I'll just be honest with you, it's gonna be months. So
Well, no, the reason what I was saying is like what you said before is you really wanted to have some sort of, priorities list
Yeah.
of, with all the, like, so my concern is going to bid, n-
I'm sorry, this is, you can use open space money
right.
for this, so.
Correct, but we also have debt service under open space. We've got, I mean, there needs to be a budget for it, not just for this year, but an understanding of, okay, 5 years, not just treating it as a slush fund, like, oh, well,
No.
we've got this money, we've got this money.
No, but
We
I
really need
do
to come up
think
with a
we
plan
need
that
to-
says, hey, we've got Esternay, we've got Schnash, we've got Shunpike, we got all these fields that require maintenance. We've got, and not too long from now, we're gonna have a turf field that needs replacement. So these are all things that you wanna plan for, not just say, well, yeah, we'll just add some more money to
Recreation
this.
reserve account itself is $220,000. And the open space fund replenishes at a rate of at least $665,000 annually. I think to withhold these tennis courts, which have been gone without maintenance for 20 years, is, you know, it's, and something that we put in last year's capital plan, we just never got to. It seems a little, I'm not sure what it seems like, but I would also just say this, the JRAC discussed these tennis courts, and they wanted this done and also the Shunpike basketball court. If we could say, okay, well, we're not gonna do Shunpike's basketball court, because it has cracks in it, we're gonna focus on these tennis courts and get them nice. That would be one thing. As far as the pickleball, we also discussed that at the JRAC. The problem with pickleball is that it makes a wicked loud sound. And if you live next to it, and there are a few residents that are gonna live next to that, you're making a major change, okay, from what they are used to hearing and seeing with tennis courts. I would propose that perhaps, and because it has not been striped yet, at Nash Field, the basketball court, we give it an experiment, stripe that as a pickleball court.
So, I agree, I agree with that, I don't like the idea of doing two where it looks funny or wonky with the other four. I think I agree with you there, that it's like, maybe we should just do all, however, 6 of them, is it? And call it a day.
The nuance is just you have the fence, like you've got them segregated.
Right.
So that's why it made sense to do those. It's sort of segregated
But
as
if
its
there
own
is-
entrance, but, I'm sorry.
I don't know, you're
Flip it, do 4, do the 4 that are on the other side of the fence.
But then it's like the other two are just not usable. I mean, I agree with his point in that, just, you know, if you're gonna do it, like, if we just did all 4, all 6, all of them, and then held off on one of the other things, but I don't necessarily agree with, pickleball being a big issue. If it's just painting some stripes on the field, let people do whatever they want.
And
It's
it would
the
buy you
sound
5
of
years.
pickleball to the residents.
I know, but I've heard pickleball sound. I don't even think it's that loud. It's not like there's houses right next door.
I mean, the sports
it's
people in
outside.
this town, we discussed this at the JRAC, and at the JRAC, they said, yeah, pickleball is a very annoying sound. It's an extremely annoying sound, and literally the discussion was dropped about putting the pickleball court there. I think, you know, pickleball, great, why don't we put it at Nash? We could put it at Nash on the basketball court. It's not always used, and let people play pickleball.
So what I'm hearing is we're gonna hold off on the bid. We're not gonna do the tennis courts just yet until, we come up with some budget. If we wanna talk about pickleball, rec committee, who's the rec committee, let's, talk with the rec committee on that and how you guys wanna handle it.
Sounds good.
Does that work, Mayor?
That's fine with me. All right, what's the
Okay.
next item for
There
you?
go.
all right,
That's
Sorry,
all you?
Larry. Sorry, Larry.
John, can I ask you a quick question?
sure.
Do we have a requirement that in the event that streets get opened up, that we require vendors to saw cut?
Yes,
Okay, nobody's doing that.
yeah, no, we have issues with, especially.
It's a
the-
mess.
Yeah.
And there's one on Mohawk Trail, I'm gonna say it's about 200 yards, and it goes from nowhere to nowhere. I don't even know why they ripped up the street, and it's.
That was PSC&G, they did it without a permit, you know, notice of violation was issued.
All right.
You know, we have a chronic issue with PSC&G, you know, with the stupidity answer that they give me is, oh, we don't really know where municipal boundaries are, so, you know, we're not sure where we're working. I'm like, come on, that's kind of ridiculous, you know where you're working. You know, it's like,
Especially on
you know,
Mohawk
you
Trail.
know, that was your excuse over on Dell, you know, that was questionable
Yeah,
because
yeah,
Dell
yeah.
splits, but come on, well, so, you know,
They can bring the
it's,
Wolverine
so that's, we do have them, we are focusing hard on them getting out there to fix the road properly. You know, they opened the road and no one knew about it, and so we found that after the fact. If we knew about it, we make sure that they saw cut the road.
I mean, I look at the cuts, and it goes from nowhere to nowhere. I don't even know what they opened it up for.
Oh, they were stopped.
Yeah, that's why, so they started,
They
so
started.
like, we
There's
don't know,
200
when we
yards
don't
of it
know when
already
they're
cut out,
coming,
yeah.
they don't tell us when they're coming, they didn't fill out a permit. So it ends up happening either police department or, you know, Dan or John are driving around, they see this, they stop, you can't do this anymore, and get you know, file a permit, and he gives them a violation. I've seen his emails and tongue lashings back and forth with them. And yeah, he's right, I mean, they're just like, we didn't know that we started one place, we don't know the boundaries of these, it's a load of crap. But all we can do is give them a notice of violation, and
Yeah,
yell at
and
them.
we'll have them come back, we'll have them saw cut the road, properly do the base repairs
Okay.
and do that. And, you know, we put them to the test, you know, that they fix it right. We don't,
Okay.
you know, accept
Yeah.
anything
I mean,
that's
it looks like the Cross
substandard.
Bronx Expressway.
Oh, yeah, it's horrible. It's
so true.
absolutely horrible. And we do require the road to be saw cut, and in fact, as they're excavating, if they undermine the road, we require them to cut it out more so that, you know, if you have underlying with a rock coming out, you know, we have specific standards that they have to follow, but, you know, it's hard to follow if we don't know where they are and where they're opening the road and don't have a permit, so, you know, they are the worst, PSCG. You know, New Jersey Natural Gas occasionally will come up with, you know, missing a permit or something, but.
They're all bad. All the utilities are bad in their own ways,
Yeah,
though. I
chase
mean,
them.
like,
We chase
it's,
them all the time.
JCP&L's bad on their things.
Yeah.
PSCNG's bad on, they're all terrible. Because they're regulated by the BPO, they feel
On the
like.
utilities liaison, they're not all terrible, there's some of them very nice people. Come on, we gotta keep a friendly face.
We do.
Okay.
We work with them. So,
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
John.
I got a question for you, John, about Mountain View, the Mountain View Road study.
sure.
What happened with that?
I think that was kicked over to the bus stop.
Yes.
And that was really
That's,
kicked over to the police.
police,
to-
yeah.
Yeah, the police was gonna investigate
And I
that,
think
do
he,
a field investigation and.
Yeah, I believe he issued a report on that, the
Okay.
chief, so.
They've been sitting there, I know.
No, the police are there all
Yeah.
the time just for safety reasons, and visibility, but the chief did, prepare a report on that. I thought it may have been included in a past, workshop packet, or if not, I'll make sure it is, but I thought it was included.
You mean the speed study there? So what's the summary of it then? Of
I
this?
remember seeing it.
I will send that to
I
you.
What's the summary of
don't
this?
recall reading it, 'cause I'd be interested too.
I remember
Pardon?
seeing it.
Just for.
There's a school bus stop at the top of Mountain View, but where it meets Fairmont. And, you know, it's,
I think it was sent to the
the
public.
residents who
Mhm.
say it's unsafe and that they're, you know,
Yeah, it's a
children.
line of sight issue.
It's line of sight and a speed issue and a rounding of the curb and, but, so it hasn't come back to you
It
then?
hasn't come back to me yet, you know, I'm aware of it, it was going, and in fact, when we did submit a DOT grant for discretionary aid for ADA ramps in town, and I know in particular, I put a little extra money in that intersection if we're gonna, you know, construct the bus stop area or do something, but, you know, I didn't get the final report to, you know, what we're gonna do at that location.
All right, one more, parking lots, you put that in your report that you're working on, some parking lots and that's gonna be. can you
Correct,
tell me
correct.
what
Well,
is happening?
yeah, no, I would anticipate that we're going to do that study in the fall and look and do some inspections when you're having peak usage on the fields to see when you have multiple sports and see and really coordinate with the rec department to see when's the best time to go out there and see that, because we do want to see the worst case scenario and design for something for the worst case scenario. So that's usually around the fall.
Okay.
So that's what we're targeting.
All right, no, just one thought I had about that is, if you look at the Shunpike drawings of the whole concept for the plan when it was created, they have some beautiful parking lot stuff. You may have been involved in it at the time, and it you know, it has like a tree as in a median, you know, not necessarily taking the whole gravel parking lot and changing it, but putting in a few specific boundaries to create, you know, natural stops for cars and things.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they did it to accommodate more cars, to just remove those things or not have them. But now the overflow is there, so, and the overflow has a great trail to it, so, you know, from there to Shunpike. So some of these like better aesthetic things, I think we could endure them in a way that we couldn't endure them in the
Yeah.
past because we had a muddy trail and, you know.
Shunpike was designed, the detention in the back and all the piping up to it was designed so that that parking lot could be paved and striped, because a paved and striped, when you have very uniform, you can usually get more organized parking in there. So the infrastructure is designed to accommodate it, we just never implemented that next step of paving it. And so we do have some concept designs for paving, like you said, and that's certainly something to look at.
You can do a proposal first on it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But
Yeah,
this
that would
is
be-
when we did the original design of Shunpike. We contemplated, full build-out would be paving the parking lot, and so those preliminary designs are done. So,
Yeah, that would be most, because that portion, the main parking lot for Shunpike has, the circulation evaporates.
Yeah, it's
Because
it's a tough
if you're
parking
trying to
lot.
park on the right side of it, the cars just line up and park, and now you can't circulate the vehicles around, they can't exit. So they back up, and children are, it's dimly lit, by the way, so children are walking indiscriminately all throughout the parking lot, cars are backing up, trying to get out, and because you don't have circulation, it becomes a little bit of the Wild West during pickup drop-off, and it's a safety hazard.
Yeah, and that's what we will, ultimately, that study or, evaluation would pick that up. And in particular in Shunpike, we did look at, we designed all the fields, we revamped the whole fields. We contemplated that in the future, that would be some paving, and we actually have electrical conduit that come up if we wanted to add streetlights in that area too. So, the infrastructure's there if we wanted to improve that parking lot.
And then just the last thing I have is community project funding. We got a huge funding for the police, and that's coming through this year. And if we apply to this again, I'm not sure what our chances are, but just because of that success. But we do have a requirement for this for 522 Southern to have busing there, and it seems to me that there is a DOT opportunity to acquire vehicles.
I'm sorry,
To acquire a bus.
Okay, yep.
Under the community project funding, and I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Okay, yeah, we can see who.
Send it to me, it's
Yeah.
not, you don't have to do anything,
Yeah.
John.
Yep.
It's not
Yep.
engineering, so.
Yep.
All right, thank you so
Okay.
much.
Good
Have a
night,
good
everyone.
evening.
Good seeing everyone.
Larry, you're back.
I'm not back, I'm leaving with John.
Oh, you're leaving?
He's gone.
Oh, okay.
I thought you stayed here.
I thought you was, all right, thank you. Have a good evening.
I thought Larry was gonna come back.
All
No, no,
right.
just on the comment.
That's fine, cool. All right, so on it, let's go next.
So-
Greg, you wanna go? Get your work done?
That way you can leave?
Are there any questions for my report?
No, it's good.
No, all right.
I'm done.
Check it off. All right, construction?
Resolution stated there that's needed.
Okay.
Any questions on that one?
Nope. All right, let's go to police.
That's the ordinance.
Yes.
So,
If I may just, I'm sorry, on sort of dovetailing to the question about Mountain View bus stop, though, the chief study, I'll let him speak to it, but I'll send it out to everybody on that, but also he and I, were brainstorming ideas to just overall make it safer, because a bus stop there just doesn't make sense either. So we talked to the bus company about trialing moving where they stop down to, the bottom of Mountain View, because I think it's safer there. So parents have ample room to park, drop their kids off, a bus can stop, it's got a sidewalk. So the bus company did agree to trial that in March, I believe, was what he last told me. So it takes the kids off the top and
Yeah.
the bus from off the top, which I think will help the traffic and the safety issue, and bring it down here. So we wanna
Sounds
see
good.
how that works first.
Okay. Seems reasonable.
It's an interesting option.
We got the real estate, right, and
Right.
it gives them
Yeah,
the
I think
opportunity to loop around
loop around,
safely,
yeah.
rather than stopping right there, affecting traffic, and again, putting people in jeopardy there. But,
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is,
no, that would
this
be
makes a
great.
perfect
Seems
bus
like a
stop,
great,
so,
yeah,
um,
good solution.
we'll see what works.
Can we go into the ordinance
Yes,
of the
sorry, I
motor
was just
vehicle
wondering.
theft? No, you're
Yeah,
good.
that's it, yeah. Motor vehicle theft and
so
enforcement.
the ordinance has been proposed with regard to motor vehicle theft. It's a combination of things. It's a combination of people who are within 20 feet on pavement, looking into vehicles, and they also have to go up to the vehicle and either open, try to open the door, peer in there, or have a device where they could clone a key. It gives a tool to the police departments, somewhat like our
Loitering.
ordinance that we passed. There are 2C charges for car theft and trespass. This is a little bit of a hybrid. And again, it's just another tool. It's been done in Homedale and another municipality in New Jersey. So this is pretty much a copy of those, or a combination of those two.
Question is, what's the legality, enforceability, et cetera?
Well, so it's different than the 2Cs because we added them additional things that they have to do that aren't in a typical trespass or
Okay.
a car theft, stealing a car. In addition, once this is okayed, what I do is I send it to the county prosecutor and the attorney general for a review on it, and I give them time to review it. If I don't hear back from them, then we can pass it.
Okay. Any issues, comments? I'm fine with it. I think it's a good idea. Whatever, any tool humanly possible that helps them to combat these car thefts, I'm fine with.
Yeah, which I agree. I do want to help the police to be able to do their jobs. I did have a number of questions on some of the language, and I reached out to the chief. I didn't want to bother him too much while he's down in his training at the academy, and I'm happy to share his detailed responses.
Sure.
But just so everybody, and I'm sure you know, right? Just so everybody knows, I asked him about this stuff that's currently on the books. So 3-7.11 is intent to steal. Chapter 1-1.5 includes the penalties. 2C5-5, electronic equipment can be charged as burglary tools. 2C5-1, criminal attempt can be used as well, and Madison has charged this. He did say he supports the ordinance because it gives him flexibility in charging on a local level. And he did think the current ordinance was too vague or broad. He hasn't had an opportunity to charge using any of the local ordinances because basically the suspects get away. But so that's, I was trying to understand, because I kept finding stuff in the code that seemed that we already had this in place. So so that was his response, just for the benefit of everyone else, but I'm happy to share all the detail.
I think this is just more car centric,
Yes.
focused on that.
Well, and part of why I asked it is, I worry when you provide details and you miss details, that provides for loopholes. So, but he seemed more comfortable with specifics, that would help rather than hinder in his process. So that's really what I was trying to get at. The ordinance itself, a couple things for clarification. It says on the top, trespass upon private property, but it's
Page
clearly.
1?
I'm on the very top of the ordinance.
Okay.
It says prohibiting the trespass upon private property, but then the detail is private and public. So I guess I'm trying to figure out what the intent is.
Well, I can add that private and public.
And part of the question is because when I asked the chief, he said some of it would be harder to enforce on public-private property. So that's why I was wondering what the intent.
Interestingly, with an ordinance, you as a private citizen can charge your neighbor with a municipal ordinance. You could actually come down and.
So if your neighbor's in your driveway looking in your car, you can charge
Yeah.
them? Okay. Interesting. Okay, so we're gonna clarify that private and public. I'm not a fan, and I'd like to see removed paragraph 6, because that is going after the state. To me, it's political in nature, it doesn't belong in local ordinance.
The sixth whereas?
Whereas, yes, the 6 whereas. 1, 2, whereas the change in state laws which lead to criminal catch and release. Yeah, I don't think that belongs in a local ordinance, and we're not here to, and I don't have the expertise to know what the implications were of the legislation. I just don't think we should be including that in the local ordinance. I'd like to see that removed. And then my only other thing, and I see this, when I read this, it sounds like we're defining intent to steal.
What page?
Second page. So it says intent shall include entering, remaining on any driveway, blah, blah, blah. Within 20 feet of stationary. Peering into a window of a motor vehicle that the person does not own or have license or privilege to possess. This basically describes every car enthusiast I know, including my husband and my son. So, And, you know, if you're in, the ShopRite parking lot and you see a rare car, there are many people who will peer into a car. So my worry is that being defined as intent, I would suggest we take it out. Now, when you described it, you said doing that and doing some of the other
Yep.
stuff.
So we can semicolon and pulling a door handle and or
Okay.
possessing an electronic key. So you could do number 1 and number 2, or number 1 and number 3, or a combination of 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Good with that?
Yeah, I had a question, I didn't understand something. It says, in the second page, under violations and penalties,
Mhm.
3-7.12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences down. Well, I'll start the sentence. Continuation of such violation on each successive day shall constitute a separate offense.
Mhm.
Get it? It says, and the person or persons allowing or permitting the continuation of the violation may be, what is that trying to get at?
I guess, yeah, I'm not even 100%. I'd have to
Okay.
check that out.
I included that, and I think probably is an error.
Okay.
I'll let Mr. King.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I'm
wh-
trying
what
to
do
get
you wanna
tight
take
on
out?
language, because
Yep.
oftentimes we find that language hasn't been clear in contracts, so I want to make sure that we don't have those problems going forward.
Okay.
Okay.
So I just put a period after the offense and then take out and the person or persons lying or permitting the continuation of the violation may be punished. I'll strike that.
Person or persons
Yeah, so
punished as,
so we'd ended at,
Yeah, yeah.
the continuation of such violations shall constitute separate offenses.
yes,
And then period, and then strike and, all the way to
yep,
punish, as provided above.
yep.
That may have been in the original ordinance on trespassing, and it was just held over,
Yeah.
then, I didn't remove it.
On the language of the key fob, you know, I would broaden it to, what do you have, like key fob detector or something, or?
Yeah, anytime, maybe
Yeah, just broaden it to
electronic device?
Any paraphernalia, any auto theft burglary paraphernalia, or any tools customarily associated with auto
Yeah,
theft.
in shoplifting,
broaden that
in
language,
shoplifting, they have that same language that if you're caught with, like bags that are
Crowbar,
covered,
yeah.
covered bags, burglary tools, all right, electronic,
So we do have that, the burglary tools, and the police chief said you could charge under that, but he does like that this is clarified.
it's more, again, specific to, automobiles.
Yes.
So, all right, so electronic, devices. All right, I'll work on that, I'll get some language. All right, then I'll make, changes and.
Is there any other edits, changes, input, comments? Does everybody agree with those? Is everybody, like, what's everyone's else's opinion here?
Yeah, my
Could
concern
you-
is that, Homedale and, Marlboro already passed this, and that we are becoming a little bit rigid and bureaucratic in our nature with these workshop sessions. They had passed this back in December, and then they, made an attempt to reduce the estoppel period, just to put it into action right away. And I just feel like if, I made a suggestion about this in November, and, by the time we get through the estoppel period, could easily be March, April, before this goes on to our books. And I just feel like we have such a great town, and one of the great things about being a small town is that you could be nimble. And we're losing some of that nimble nature with these with this workshop format.
I disagree.
I mean, I'll have this done by next meeting, so. we
Right,
can put it on
okay,
the
well,
agenda.
let's get back to
Yeah.
the actual contents of this, ordinance. Is there any other edits? Is everybody okay with this language? Does anybody want changes? Like, that's what I kinda want to iron out right now.
Could you just run down real quick again, Pete? Just, it's hard to follow from
So-
where I'm sitting.
So we're adding, make it private and public property in the, title. And then on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6 whereas will be taken out. With regard.
Can you read, what was the sixth, whereas?
Okay, the 6 whereas is whereas the change in state law which led to criminal catch and release remain unaddressed by the state lawmakers and are encouraging lawless behavior in our communities, that part of the whereas would be taken out. With regard, do you have any comment?
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I think that, yeah, maybe it's a little bit political in nature, but whereas clauses are not necessarily part of, the strict law enforcement. They're statements of reasons and have to do with the necessity for this statute. And I think that this thing has, I think we all know to a certain extent that there may be a symbolic nature to this because it's very difficult to prosecute these crimes or these violations, I guess we'll call them, as the chief has said about the anti-loitering statute and other things, ordinance. We have passed resolutions in the past as a committee about the need for things to be done in Trenton. Things are not being done in Trenton. I think it's important for Chatham Township to be seen as a community that's on the vanguard of leading this charge. And to a certain extent, I think one of the significant aspects of passing this, in addition to providing the chief and the department with another, arrow in their quiver to combat this sort of activity, but it's also to memorialize our active status in this movement, start in Homedale and the other communities that are passing these types of ordinances, and I think it's important. I think there's no point in taking it out.
Okay.
The state is working on there's a number of legislative efforts to address car thefts at the state level. If this committee wants to make a statement regarding our endorsement of those efforts, then
We have done
I
that.
think that
We have already done that.
there's a whole, it sounds like there's a whole new list versus what we had talked about way back when. But, if we wanted to discuss that, I think we discuss it separate. I don't think we bury it in an ordinance that has to do with changing local.
These whereases won't be in the ordinance. These are just the preambles. Really what your ordinance is the 3-711.
It will never make it to the code book,
It's
but
not
it
gonna
will
make
be
it
in
to
the
the
code.
ordinance, and
Right.
that's,
But it's
that's
not
gonna
go into the
so I
code.
think
And
it kind of.
it's basically a political, I think it's just a
I don't
political
necessarily
tag.
think
It's got
it's
catchphrases in
100%
there.
right. I totally agree with you, Stacy. It is
I don't think
largely
it's political.
No, I think it's a statement in my mind of one of the many reasons why I, as a member of this committee, support this ordinance and encourage the other members of the committee to support it as well.
My thing is that I've seen, when we did the presentation with the chief, with all the police, and he went through all the reasonings why car thefts have occurred, and they said over and over and over again, they would catch these people and then they would get released over and over and over again. They would catch these criminals 5-6 times they've already been caught. And so it is a catch and release issue. So that's why I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, but I also heard the other side, which is that it's very much driven by organized crime, and you can't pay the kids $1,000 a car to grab the cars unless you've got the pipeline to get it to the other countries, and unless you have the market to sell in the other countries at 3. So
But it's
organized crime,
still, if you
which
catch
is-
them and keep them in jail, they're
Yes.
not going out and doing it again.
But in other words, catch and release always existed for organized crime because they could pay for it. And I don't want to get into debates about.
I think if you start thinking along those lines, you can go upstream as far as you want. You can go to the degradation of society. I think the point of it is, the importance of this is public safety. We're experiencing an elevated incident rate of auto thefts, period. I think that's the point. And so I think if you want to put anything as far as a whereas clause, it should be a recognition of, as a statement of fact. As to what the underlying issues are, I think you can have disposition of it for eons on why it's happening, honestly.
But it might
Like,
not
it's
be
irrelevant.
entirely apparent, but the purpose of this ordinance is so that people who would previously have been released will not be. Because what ends up happening is they're above the threshold of, that allows them to just simply be released.
Who were those
or
people
given
that
a
would have
city.
been released beforehand that won't be released now?
Well, we had a car.
Poorer people that couldn't afford bail? This is the debate I don't wanna get into. And this is where we don't have the expertise or the education.
Well, we had a theft on Lenape Trail where our police followed them to
All
a
right.
gas station, and they had to let them go because of their age. And if this had been in place for that theft, then they could have issued a citation, which when they didn't show up for court, they would have then been able to pursue them with a warrant. So that's the purpose of this. It does directly address catch and release.
So then what I'm gonna say is, we gotta call hands, how many people, who wants the paragraph 6 in the ordinance? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes? I wanted it, all right, so that's 3. And I think that's,
Right, the other,
Having it
the other
set.
changes are in, after following acts, I'm gonna add semicolon, end, and or, in those first 2. And we're going to amend, electronic keys to electronic devices, and maybe I'll put in some, car theft, tools, something to that effect. I'll try to wordsmith it. The other thing we're taking out is in section 3-7.12, the second sentence, it's gonna read, the continuation of such violation on each successive day shall constitute a separate offense, period. Stricken out will be, and the persons allowing or permitting the continuation of the violation may be punished as provided above for each separate offense will be stricken. And that is all the changes.
okay. Are we good? Is there 3 votes? 1, 2, are you third vote on this?
To keep that in? I mean, we're not taking a vote right
No,
now.
I-
I know
No,
you
no,
just
no,
said-
no, I'm counting heads to make sure,
So
so
I
that
draft
he
it.
can draft it and we can go on the next agenda to be introduced.
If it's voted on at the next meeting in public session, then the mayor's checking to see if there would be.
Right, if there's not,
anticipated 3 votes.
right.
Yeah, there's anticipated 3 votes, exactly.
That's
Everybody
what I'm trying to,
reserves.
so he can move forward so that we're actually like productive and we're not redoing this whole thing over and over and over and over
There's
again.
enough of a consensus to move it forward.
Perfect, all right, what's the next, that was, that.
Public Works.
Public Works. Resolution, you wanna
Yeah.
go here?
The director and I have had a struggle finding a good mechanic, but obviously we updated our ordinances. We've got our collective bargaining agreement with the Teamsters, which gives us a little bit of flexibility. We've updated the ranges in there. In the last couple of weeks, we got 3 more applicants. One of them is going through the process of providing the necessary paperwork to qualify and be recommended for hire. So I anticipate that by our next meeting on the 21st, that there will be a resolution to appoint. So just want to make sure there's no obstacles or objections to that. We are short, just as a reminder, that we're still short that mechanic due to a retirement, and so we desperately need one there. No issues? Okay.
No issues, anybody, any objections?
No objections to that. I do have a question on the report.
Sure.
The report said that there was daily cleaning done at Shunpike and at Nash, and I'm just wondering, that, those bathrooms are still closed and winterized at Shunpike, so I'm wondering maybe a follow-up on that, and really just a follow-up on my previous question about why those bathrooms are closed at Shunpike. Mr. Young said he was gonna look into a heater, so that it would be in the same situation as Nash, where we could at least have the bathrooms open so there'd be some place to go. I wonder if there's any, more information about that.
There is, he did provide me with a proposal, it was a substantial proposal, we have gone back and forth on trying to find some other options and or alternatives. I think this daily cleaning of the bathrooms was a copy and paste from the previous report.
What was how much is, substantial?
I don't have it at my fingertips, but if you shoot me an email, I could send you over that information, Committeeman. I wasn't anticipating that question tonight.
Okay, and then what about, replacing the statue at Sean Pike? Where are we with that?
We're not gonna be doing that.
And that was passed in the resolution last year, so what was the decision for that?
The decision
We
for.
sat, we had a meeting with Rich and you and Larry,
Right.
where we prioritized our initiatives last year, and that was very low on the priorities list.
Okay, so maybe it's something we could look at again.
All right, can we go on to tax collector? Is there any, I guess there's nothing there, or tax
No,
assessor?
Administration, you have two things.
Yeah,
Yes,
because
I'm going back to
Sure,
administration.
yeah, just because the collector is starting Thursday,
Okay.
and so we've been without one for the last month,
Okay.
but nothing to report there. We will hopefully have a report for the next workshop meeting. With that, the assessor, nothing new there besides the report. I think you all saw that. The unless there's anything else, we would go to the administration.
Yeah, let's go to
items. Do you want
administration.
Construction first?
You
You
oh,
wanna do construction
Oh,
first?
there's construction?
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did that already.
Let's do the affordable housing, ones first, or do you want to just do the administration?
There's nothing there, it's just letting you know that, there was a resignation in that position, advertised, found someone, there's an interim right now who's been working, she's got tremendous experience, but this was just a interim position for her, and so found a permanent replacement, who has accepted the offer and will be starting February 16th, and so the resolution would ratify that hire, unless there's any questions.
This is hiring the administrative assistant?
Correct.
I just wanna know about this, this administrative assistant position is full-time employee, full-time benefits, full-time pay, full-time burden on the township. We have some retirement in the construction office, we have some changes maybe there. We have a shrinking number of, employees. We have a recreation director that we didn't have, under our our previous, the predecessor to the predecessor of our administrator, had no assistant, had no recreation director, filled the recreation director's role, or held that position, serviced recreation, I should say, had no administrative assistant, and took a substantial role in the finance committee, in financials of the town, doing books and records. And it just seems to me that this might not be a position that reflects the past. I mean, that position was only created with the last administrator, and we never had it previously. So it seems to me like something that maybe if we don't eliminate, but we should look at it from a part-time basis at most, because the full-time benefit, full-time burden on the township seems like a lot compared to the history of the town.
Noted.
I don't have a problem with having an administrative assistant, as long as they're working,
I think the other reality is, I think some of those functions were falling under other people. I think
Yeah.
that was just a movement of some of the
Yeah.
Activities. That was my understanding.
One of the roles that they'll hopefully fill will be the deputy registrar, which we're required to have by law.
Got it. All right, so let's go to the affordable.
Are there any other objections on that?
Oh.
I just want to be clear, we're filling something, this is not a new position?
Correct. It's a replacement of a position, of an individual in a position, correct.
And at the same cost, lower cost,
I think maybe like 1,000 or 2 more.
Okay.
This goes directly to appropriations. I mean, you wanna increase appropriations year after year, you know, that this is what this is going to lead to. And while we have a past history, but it's an immediate past history, I don't know what year the assistant was hired, but Greg would probably know better than I would. 2019, 2020?
2019. We've also had a vacancy in the deputy clerk position since 2010, which would be nice to have filled.
All right, let's go on to the affordable housing. This is a topic that has been brought up in the past, especially with the concept of forming committees on affordable housing. So my attitude has been essentially, everybody knows our hands are tied with affordable housing in that it's a requirement at the state level. It's not on, we're required to fulfill an obligation. Because of the way New Jersey has operated their affordable housing and these mandates, it precludes the public from being involved in that process, and now it pretty much goes through the courts and via fair share housing. With that, it ties into this concept of an advisory committee. I met with one of our affordable housing attorneys yesterday and asked her opinion on how we can move forward, where we can have something in place where we can start planning for our next round while we still keep the attorney-client privilege and are still keeping all that information that is discussed in these meetings private, confidential, and so that it doesn't ever hurt us in a future lawsuit with fair share housing. One of the ideas that had been brought up is the formation of a committee with planning, maybe like the planning board chair, a planning board member, a couple members of the township committee, the administrator, and affordable housing attorney, and affordable housing planner was one of the topics. In that case, it can still all be kept attorney-client privilege. She had a couple other good points to make as well. Z, that was the main thing that I wanted to get across when I met with her. Was there any other items that you thought were important?
Just sort of generally on the timeline of things, right?
Yes.
We did discuss that, which was, obviously our settlement takes us through 2025, and there was, I asked her, hey, we wanna get ahead of the curve, we wanna start planning and looking at things, both properties, zoning, requirements, our numbers, locations, how can we get started on this, what should we do? And, her response really was, that's great, it's a good thing to want to do that, but realistically, nobody knows where to go because so many things are still up in the air, right? The litigation on COA, does COA come back or not between now and then? Fair share is kind of even in a limbo on that stuff because they don't know, again, how like in terms of the calculations, the negotiations are going to go, and I think that largely drives these settlement discussions. Also, the governor's race, which is a big thing as well, right? So there's a governor's race happening next year, which can also affect things. So,
but it's before it'll be before the next round.
Correct, before the next round.
Yeah.
So, said things we can start talking to is in this sort of committee is talk with our planner about trying to see locations that might be suitable from a developer's perspective and how the zoning is applied there in terms of density and feasibility and trying to get ahead of the curve and that's really it. I mean, there's not much you can do. We can just start these discussions, but really they're just that. They're just early discussions. There's not gonna materialize into much just yet.
Yeah. When I was working with the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, and I mentioned this to the mayor as well, everybody looked for a target. Everybody wants a number.
Right.
We can't magically figure out what that number's gonna be.
Exactly.
We don't wanna be in a position to magically figure out what So my suggestion to the committee was, and they were amazing, culling through all the information, but was to make a recommendation of priorities. So approach number 1 would be to do, this. Approach number 2, based on all the information we've gathered, all the land that was available, the cost, the community buy-in to different, concepts. So it wasn't, and then this way you could slice it up. So you could say, okay, if you, allow X, that'll give you 30 units if you need 30 units. If you allow Y, but in other words, a priority of how to address it. If our priority is we want to put in senior housing because there's a real need in the Morris County area, then that might be something that's outlined. If we want to, our priority is veteran housing. So that's what I was looking more so than numbers, is to evaluate exactly what you said, evaluate everything, document it, because so the residents know this was looked at, this is why it's,
Well, we have to be careful about documenting.
Well, eventually.
Yeah, we can't really, that's kind of the point where otherwise we'll be biting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
If when we have a lawsuit. That's the only concern.
And that is the other thing, regardless of the governor, it's still in the courts. So unless it gets moved out of the courts.
Well, right, but it could get moved out of the court. Right, we just don't know.
Doesn't matter who the governor is, unless the governor decides to reconstitute COA.
Right.
Yeah, I guess that's
that's the. So I don't know. That was kind of what we discussed yesterday with her.
Was that yesterday? Jesus.
That was her recommendation.
Well, her recommendation was basically like, it's too early. Was her attitude.
Yeah,
She was like, you can form something, but make sure it is as you are 100% keeping it the attorney-client privilege there. And so if we were going to do that, I'm not convinced it's the right move to make right now. Right, we do need to hire or appoint a affordable housing planner, and because of Frank Banish's historical knowledge and his relationship, she did recommend just appointing him in a non-fair and open.
Yeah, because we advertised, we didn't get anything. We
didn't
could
get
advertise again. There's no rush, so if we really did want to do that,
Right.
we could advertise for
Did that
affordable housing
conflict
planner.
with the ordinance that we passed?
No, because we
Required.
advertised.
We advertised for township planner, and he didn't. But with this is if we want to separate from a township planner and just limit it to specifically affordable housing planner, we could do that too. Still appoint it under fair and open. It's not a big deal because there's no time crunch on this. So
Right.
we could
Right.
put that on for the next meeting.
It was more
authorization
of,
to
I wanted to keep
RFQ.
everybody updated of the conversation that I had, where she said she clearly was very, very knowledgeable, seemed like a very good appointment, in the affordable housing space. This was
Is this
clearly
for
her.
Serenian? 'Cause I thought Serenian
No,
definitely recommended.
he's still our affordable housing attorney on the specific issue of the lawsuit, and then this was another, counsel that we're also seeking, for more day-to-day advice, and that's, what's so good is we have the flexibility to use both.
Yeah. Because I thought Serenian did recommend affordable housing advisory, because that's where I was.
Yeah, he
Going off
recommend, it was very similar conversation as the advisory committee, very similar in okay, make sure that it is protected with attorney-client privilege, that you don't pierce that. So it has to be, elected officials or planning board members, and only a couple, and you have to keep it really small, et cetera. But it's, it's not really a rush, unless if other people, I don't feel the need to feel like there's a rush, but yeah, that's my opinion.
On the affordable housing planner piece, I mean, Frank Banish has served as special master for like 50 towns, so he's got deep knowledge, plus he's been around here forever, so I'm definitely supportive, whether it's a non-fair and non-open process or however you
Well, I
want
think
to.
since there really is no rush on that,
Mhm.
so we could just put a resolution on for the next meeting to do a
rebid.
fair, little RFQ for that position of affordable housing planner.
Okay, let's notify him.
That's fine.
Can I just authorize the RFQ?
Yeah.
To me though, the idea of getting an affordable housing planner or to start something with an advisory committee, what would be the purpose? And so to me, to answer that question, what I would say is that, well, it's preparation. And while we say we don't know what the end formula is gonna be, we do know.
It's hard to prepare.
It's hard to prepare, but, we do know that there is real, the realistic development potential has changed. Because we know that the plots of land have changed, and there's significant, minor subdivisions that have happened under the road. There's some significant changes. There was one on the end of Britain Road that was a large tract, that's off the board. I would be interested in seeing what a new calculation would be as to the RDP, and then to take a look at ways, that we could, strategically position the town regarding the RDP. So, I mean, one thought I have is, we have some municipal property that's not part of open space. Maybe it should be.
Right.
I think there are
I agree.
specific questions that, while we don't know the formula, we do know the inputs. And I'd love to hear what Mr. Troy has to say about this, because I think that you have, a different perspective than this committee has seen before. In terms of the formula, what's coming, and if I'm putting it on the spot, I don't mean to, I'm not doing that. I am honestly curious.
I don't, I can only surmise what inputs are, going into that calculation, but I don't know for certainty and how things are, an intimate understanding of how the algorithm works. But I think at the end of the day,
I believe
the
it's a bit of
obligation is
black
not gonna
magic
be
too.
zero. Yeah, it is. It's a little bit of more art than science, but then therein lies why you ally with a competent, affordable housing attorney and a good planner in order to combat the number, in order to challenge the number into something that's more tenable for the township. But there are things that I go back to the master plan. I think the master plan is quite vulnerable quite vulnerable right now. And I think that taking a look at that instead of looking at individual elements, which seems to be the modus operandi right now for the last, I don't know, 6-7 years, I think you really need to look at a genuine review of the master plan. I think that's step one.
Why do you say that?
Well, so you can really, there's a lot of developments that, so if you look at mid and high density, you can kind of control a little bit more on what's going on there if you look at kind of tighten up the zoning right now, right? And more on individual lots, I think we have an issue with setbacks right now.
I do.
There's just two that I know right off the cuff. I haven't even looked at the master plan, but I can only guess. If you haven't looked at it in 15 years, I assure you it's antiquated.
It has been updated.
Right, elements of it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
No, but even the pervious and impervious coverage, I mean, there's elements of the zoning, like, so we got burned with that with Charlie Brown's. Pervious,
That's
impervious coverage that really is pervious, but it's somehow not pervious, and they want it. I mean, we have a
pervious
hole
concrete.
in our zoning, to your point, yeah.
All right, is there any other issues, or can we open up the second hearing of citizens?
I just have one more grant that I just wanted to ask about, which is this, assistance to firefighters for vehicle acquisition, because we have a rescue truck at Green Village that they've been asking for. Have we applied for that? Are we going to apply for that?
Say that again, I'm sorry. Are you asking about the grants that we received, or you're saying the next round?
So we have a current assistant to firefighters, assistance to firefighters grants. It's a
Yeah, we
federal
received
grant.
two grants for one for each of the departments. Is that what you're asking about, the grants that we received?
No, there's
Okay.
a grant that's due, it's very soon, like February 10th. I'm asking,
Okay.
are we applying for it, for vehicles, because for vehicle acquisition, the rescue trucks.
No, they haven't approached me about the need for that or to apply.
Oh, well, we need a rescue truck at Green Village and a ladder truck at Chatham Township. But you're not aware of those two trucks?
They have not told me about that, no.
Wow.
I didn't know about the rescue truck, I knew about the other, because the one at the Chatham Township Fire Department's like a $2 million truck that they're gonna need,
The ladder truck,
the ladder truck.
yeah.
How much is the one at Green Village?
Between 800 and 1 million. then the rescue truck is
Alright.
the one that would be applied for under this grant, cause the ladder truck doesn't apply.
All right, let's open up the second hearing of citizens to the public. I seen anybody, do I need to give the whole open?
No, just, no,
I can make a motion to open up, I have to make a motion?
No,
no,
you
no
don't.
motion, just
I
open.
never make an open, okay. Public hearing of citizens is open. Anybody? Anybody online?
No hands raised.
Going? All right.
Tom, anything?
All right, so we're gonna close the public hearing of citizens, and can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you very much. Have a good evening, and I will see you all in 2 weeks.
Amanda, do you wanna sign stuff for me?
Yes,
Or do you
would-
wanna come back in here?
How many is it? I'll come back, I'm sorry. That looks like a lot.
It's,